first education, in my opinion, is your playing experience. And most likely that probably is at the high school level. Some people may remember some of the things they did in middle school. For me, my first vivid experience is playing 4th grade basketball. 4th grade on a competitive traveling team that we played together in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. I can to this day tell you exactly some of the offensive and defensive things that we did. And that was education. I mean, sometimes people are born to be coaches, I think, in a certain respect. In other words, they have some of these precursors that they look for things. And so I was one of those people that wasn't blessed with athletic ability, but I really understood what the coach was asking the players to do. And that's probably why I spent more time on the bench next to the coach than actually out on the court, which was okay. Of course, I got disgruntled with that over time, but I really gained a lot of knowledge on the bench because not only could I see what the coach was expecting to develop on the floor, but I also could hear what the coaches were talking about. Besides being comical, it was also very educational too, and I picked that up at a very early age. But if you get into your high school experience and maybe towards your later middle school years and certainly a college experience, you start to be introduced to more advanced concepts. And a perfect example that I know a lot of coaches in high school would be familiar with is something called like the flex offense. We ran the flex offense pretty significantly in my later years in high school. And to me, that was the only offense I really knew compared to maybe when we scouted other opponents. We briefly learned some key elements of other offenses. But so whatever you do as a high school player or as a middle school player, that's your first coach's education. And that's not to be overlooked, because we all know that things that you learn at an earlier age are easily learned, I guess you might say. So that to me is where coach's education starts. That's not to be discredited. Certainly there's elements of the things that I did as a player that I still use in both practice and in games. Then I would say that the second element of coach's education comes from your first coaching experiences, whether it be basketball or anything else. I've started out in a larger school district in Iowa as an 8th grade assistant football coach, having never played football past 10th grade as a player. And thankfully, you didn't need to know a great deal of football knowledge to be a good coach. It was more just a good manager of players, I guess. But also, what is your first position as an assistant basketball coach? I don't know very many people who came out of college and became head basketball coaches right away. So who are those mentors, those head coaches you work for? And I'll tell you, I was blessed to work for in my first 2 previous schools, to work for 2 completely opposite people in philosophy. One was a post player and a very successful post player, and very much a person who demanded respect, and their relationship with players was a lot different than in my next experience, where the coach was much more laid back, was much more of a talker, more of a rally the troops type of a coach. So just in relationships and dealing with players, I had a great mentor in my first 2 coaching positions. Now, obviously, there is an opportunity in college. If you know you're going into basketball coaching, many colleges and universities will offer an intro to basketball or even an advanced basketball class, which I was fortunate enough to take with Mr. Ron Smith at University of Northern Iowa, who's now the associate head coach at Southern Illinois. And then, of course, you get your position as an assistant coach at the high school level or a head varsity coach. Then you have to decide, okay, well, what part of my career and how do I educate myself? Well, you still have those mentors. Those mentors haven't gone away. They're hopefully still a big part of your coaching philosophy, and you can bounce ideas off of them, and you impacted them, and they have impacted you in both positive and negative ways. And then you have to decide, okay, now, are you going to be the coach that says, I know the way I play, and I know the systems and offense and defense schemes that I learned from my mentors, and now I'm done? Because there are those coaches out there that, this is the body of knowledge that I know, and this is the way it's going to be. And certainly, there are coaches that has worked for. My choice and my path is that I don't believe any person who's a teacher or a coach is done learning, ever.